quick. Hi, Gail. Have to get something real quick. I'll be right there.
So, here we are.
Feels like we're sort of like in purgatory in the middle, right? Just right.
Yeah.
Kevin
Yeah.
says,
We don't know where we are. We're right at the end of the other and the beginning of this. It's a very
Kevin Leonard's comment, interesting,
I'm
on time.
I know, right? Right? On time. What?
Okay. All right,
See
let me
Kevin's
go.
comment.
What did Kevin say?
Interesting, on time.
I know. That was amazing. We covered everything there. Okay. Is this the one? Yes, this is the one. Is that the way? That's not the way. Okay. Go to live chat. Okay. Hi, Linda, Julie, Janae, Captain Lee, Carolyn P, LMNW, Lisa L, Debbie L, Hi 61, Gail B, Nicole Griffith, Nightbot. Kevin didn't make it yet. I shared to the Facebook group. Thank you, Snow Remover.
Me neither, I gotta go find it here.
Okay. Hi, Shanna. How are you? We're back on the case. December 2nd is coming right up. I mean, they're going to make a decision on this.
Oh, is that right? For
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, let's take a poll.
Bad enough he's wasting.
Let's take a poll.
Can't stop yawning.
Are you tired, Sharon?
Are you?
I don't know.
How could you be tired? Didn't you get up really late?
Who?
Come on.
Me? I didn't even go to sleep until at least 10 in the morning.
Okay, but I thought you slept in, Nicole, didn't you?
Sort of, yeah. But then I had to bring pick my kids up from school.
Right.
And then they had their counseling.
Right. But you.
And then I had to pick up the box set.
I know, but it's not time for bed yet.
I know, but I have to go shopping tomorrow before it gets real dark and before my kids get off the bus. So I want to get up early.
Okay. But what I'm trying to say, if you sleep, like if I sleep in, I just can't go to bed early.
Well, I can't. But I mean, I don't know. I'm going to try to sleep. I hope I can.
There's a comment from Shanna in the chat.
Judge states that she will write and publish their decision by December 16th now. Oh, okay, by December 16th, but it's still coming up. Still coming up.
So what? Oh,
She's, what do you think that means? Any thoughts on what that means, Shanna? Do you think, what do you think that means? That she needs extra time to review things, check things? What do you think that means? Do you think that's leaning more towards no new trial or a new trial? You can't talk about being sleepy, because then I'll fall asleep when I'm reading and we won't last long. You believe the judge doesn't want to even waste her time with an in-person hearing. Bad for Scott. Okay, so 67% said no new trial. So far. I do not believe he will get a new trial.
the peanut gallery Are we all in agreement here? No new trial.
But
no new trial. No
they
new trial.
have to still do the other part of it, which is going to delve into a lot of the stuff that was in the trial. So that's the thing. That's the only thing that's got me, I don't know. Let the poll go for a little bit. Kevin says no new trial. No, but it's California, so nothing will surprise me, she says. Yeah, let's see if that they've posted anything new about that. Let's see what they say on their Okay, so Friday's hearing 6 hours ago has been vacated. Let's see what this is. Let's make this larger. Let's make this larger. In the Superior Court of the State of California, in and for the County of San Mateo, and regarding Scott Peterson on habeas corpus, order vacating hearing set for December 2nd, 2022 at 10 a.m. and vacating order for transport. This court hereby vacates the hearing set for December 2nd, 2022 in Department 41 of the Superior Court, County of San Mateo at 10 a.m. The decision on the habeas petition will be issued in writing with no further hearing required. If either party to this action wishes to receive a courtesy PDF copy of the decision, once the court signs it, they must provide the clerk with an email address for lead counsel. The court's written decision will be issued not later than so it could be before. Not later than. Okay, this doesn't sound good. Not later than December 16th, the court's prior order for transport of the defendant to the December 2nd, 2022 hearing is hereby vacated. It is so ordered, dated November 28th, 2022, and Christine Masullo, San Francisco County Superior Court Judge, sitting as San Mateo County Superior Court Judge. So let's see. Do they have no reaction to this? Let me see. Let's see what the reaction is here. The guy is 100% not guilty. How do you know? Wrong, somebody says. Bill, genuinely based on the evidence produced so far, not guilty, but in the real world, unsure if he is guilty or isn't guilty. Let's see what else. The backlash this judge potentially faces is worth it. No decision is easy, especially with a wrongfully convicted person is incarcerated for such a long time, and the public is merciless. Justice will prevail, and soon. The truth will prevail, and everyone will see that all the facts that emerge will prove Scott's innocent. I'm 100% confident of this. Hashtag, it's time for a new trial. Someone says no reason for it. This has to either be idle or something in preparation. I'm praying for a good surprise. Prayers, someone said. We stand in unity, praying for him and his family. Only one judge, and that last God. I'm hoping that they're doing this to stop a large media frenzy at the door of the courthouse, as well as deterring potential vigilante killers when it's announced that a new trial will be granted. So they're seeing a different take on it. Someone said, I'm hoping so as well. Another person says the original jury was corrupt. That alone, he deserves a new trial, not to mention all the other inconsistencies. Another person says it deserved to be overturned. They never even looked at the other suspects. The other person said, I don't understand why more people can't see his innocence. Another person said, that's BS. Wait all this time for the 2nd of December for this to happen? Another one said, who is standing in prayer with me to let the truth be revealed? Let's all stand in prayer until then for him and his family. Another person says, sorry, I know how frustrating that is, sending hugs and prayers. Another one said, maybe the court is preparing for the overturn and the potential backlash of it. Someone said, that is exactly where my mind went. Another one said, at least for a new trial. My very first thought as well, someone else said. My thoughts exactly, trying to avoid any issues with the ruling. Let's hope so in this case. That's what I'm thinking too. Can someone please explain what this means? I looked it up, but I'm still not sure it applies here. It looks like something has been dismissed, but we don't know if it's the appeal or the conviction. Is that correct? And they said, Judge Tierney, the judge, was going to issue her decision from the bench on Friday, but now she is going to issue it in writing no later than December 16th. She is deciding whether Scott's conviction will be overturned due to juror misconduct. And they asked the family any feelings on if this is good or bad. I can't decide either way. He deserves another trial. I hope he gets it. 18 days. Someone said, I think that this is bad. Written rulings are usually used when they know there's going to be more done. Keeping this status the same, no need for a written ruling, just my opinion. Someone said, written rulings are the norm in appellate courts. The judge calling for a hearing was out of the ordinary. Another person said, no idea. Basically, the judge has heard enough and made her decision, said someone. Could be, my guess is it isn't that simple. Someone said, if I am reading this correctly, it sounds that there will be no hearing Friday and the decision will be issued in writing by December 16th. Someone said, no, this does not mean no trial. It simply means that Scott won't stand in front of a judge to hear the decision if he'll be granted a new trial. She said, I meant to say hearing on Friday. What and why would it be vacated? Someone said, I don't have a great feeling if they aren't even going to have a hearing, sadly, but I sure won't mind being wrong. Someone said, would it be possible for this judge to drop all charges and set him free? No, she can only reverse the conviction. The district attorney then decides whether or not to retry him. They will. Another person said, so in other words, he could walk if they choose not to retry him? Yes. I don't know what to think about this. Someone is crying emojis. I don't know. I feel like maybe this is a good thing. Somebody says basically instead of a verbal decision, the judge vacated that route to make it a written decision on jury misconduct, new trial by December 16th. I really hope this is to avoid a riot. I so hope he gets a new trial with all the evidence or lack thereof and everything omitted in his trial years ago. Okay. I'm tired of waiting. He won't get a new trial. What? I really hope they're not about to deny it. I have a good feeling. Hashtag Free Scott, someone said. Come on, hasn't he waited long enough? Is it good or bad? Maybe they're trying to avoid a riot. I hope he gets a new trial. Wonder what this really means. So this just goes back to the lower court to decide the case again? No, it just means that the judge will issue her decision in writing instead of in court on Friday. I hope so. Wrongful conviction, someone said.
Do you think they pay these people to do this? Sway opinion?
Oh, I don't know. I think there are generally people that think he's innocent. Don't you?
I don't know.
You don't think?
No.
Really? We've had people come in here that thought he's innocent.
He's the only one who could have or would have. That's the way I see it. Not to mention the new vote and all that crap.
I know.
Christmas Eve, this weekend, in the Bay, no.
Kevin was trying to get your attention that
Oh,
Shanna said that Janie had failed the bar.
oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay. Let's see. Go over here. Let's end this poll. 67% say no new trial. 33% say new trial. Someone would have been revealed as the murderer if there was anyone else. There was definitely no one else. Sunkit says, I don't think he is innocent at all. High 61 says, Carolyn, what site are you reading from? I'm reading from the official site, from that the family has that's doing the appeal, and it is called Scott Peterson Appeal. Not from the, I'm just looking for them to put their stuff there. Oh, where did I put the other thing that I had? Where the heck? Here we go. So, I think, let's see. Case facts. Court exhibits. Complete trial record. Defense witness testimony. Arguments and panels. Amber and Ron Fry's phone records. Sears and came up. Cheney interview. Schedule and there's a stipulation. Okay. Thought that was something else there. Preliminary hearing. So we went through, let's see. We were at Brent Rocha, Lacey's brother, we did that. And then Rose also testified. I think we did Rose. And I think we were on Gwendolyn May Kemple, Sharon's first cousin. I think we were there. Let me see. Sandy Rickard, Sharon's best friend. Wait a minute. Lacey's brother. And then Rosemary Roca. Did we do Rosemary Roca? Did we do the whole thing? Let me see. Yeah, I believe we did do all of Rosemary Roca, and then we should be on to Sandy Rickard. Who wants to read this with me? Who wants to be Sandy Rickard? We didn't do Sandy Rickard, right?
No, we didn't do it. I'll do it.
Okay, I'll put the thing in chat. That'll be
Okay,
right.
wait.
That should lead right
I
to
know.
her testimony. Hang on.
Oops.
I know what we should do. You know what we should do? We should rename you every time for the, if you're going to do this for the witness name.
Rename?
Yeah.
Oh, put my
For the
new
witness.
name here?
Yeah, put, what did we have? Sandy Rickard. So that somebody will clearly see like who you're supposed to be.
SANDY.
Let me see. Where did I just lose my thing? Hold on a second. Just lost my thing. This one. Rosemary. No, we did Rosemary. We're back to. Where the heck are we? Sandy. Okay, it is. That's why. SANDYRICKARD.
Exactly how I did it. Alright, I gotta find the thing first.
Okay.
Where-
I put the thing in there. I think it's.
Yeah.
So,
It's in the chat?
yeah, I just put it in the chat. You don't have it?
No, I'm looking for it on my phone.
Right. It's in there again.
Oh, did you put it there again?
Mm-hmm. Casey is trying to throw her dad under the bus now. She's blaming. Oh gosh. Yes, isn't that thing on tonight? Wait, that thing is that Casey Anthony thing? When is that on? Isn't that on tomorrow? Hi, Devil's Diva. Hi, Misbehave. You. Carolyn, you two show us live. You're in blue. Carolyn, you.
I cannot find it.
To show you're as live, you're in blue. What? What, Misbehave? It's going to be on at 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time?
Oh, my chat.
Is that what you said? Oh, is it really going to be on it? Maybe we can watch that in the member Zoom. What is it's on Discover? Is it on ID Discovery? What is it on, Deadly Diva? What is it on? Oh, my watch won't stop buzzing. I want to hit it. It's driving me crazy. I feel.
I cannot find the link.
Can anyone else in the chat see the link I put in? Okay, I'll just send it to you in Slack. How's that? Maybe?
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
I can see it in there.
Okay, I'm sending it in the DM.
Okay.
Live stream it so. No, I don't want to get a copyright. Sorry, Deadly Diva. But we'll watch it in Zoom. We watch it in Member and Patreon Zoom. It's on Peacock. Jessica Sala says it's on Peacock. I'm not shown as going live? I don't know what that is, Misbehave. You know, like some people, I guess they show them as live and sometimes they don't. I don't know why I'm not shown as going live. I don't know. She's saying that YouTube isn't showing you as live. Your button doesn't turn to red to show you're live. It stays blue. But you mean, is that when sometimes the people have the... I see some people have that. I don't know how they get that. Let me see. Dashboard. Content. Live. It shows live here. Live stream. I'm seeing a red live. Does anybody else see a red live for me? I see it. Scott Peterson reenactment.
I see it. Kevin says he sees it,
Yeah, I see it.
but some of them are saying they're blue.
Do a refresh your page. Try to refresh your page. I see it live. But I'm talking about there's like another little thing where I see like the channel icon and it says live underneath for some people that are live. And even when they're not live, it says, I don't understand that one. But I see it, it says live now. It's the second thing on my channel. Look. I'll show you. You see? It says home, live, then live now. Live, live, live.
I'm all set here, so.
Okay, are you ready? All right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right, let's go. All right, let me go here and go my thing now. Okay. So this is June 8th, 2004, direct examination by Rick DeStasso. Did you know who Lacey Peterson was?
Yes,
Okay, and you also know who the defendant in this case is, Scott Peterson, is that right?
yes.
Just briefly, how is it, what's your relationship to Lacey and the defendant's family?
Sharon's my best friend.
Sharon, her mother?
Sharon, her mother, is my closest friend.
And how long have you been friends?
Probably about 20 years, but been very close for about the last 10.
And after Lacey moved back to Modesto from St. Louis Obispo, did you also have a relationship with her?
Yes,
And do you feel that, over the course of the couple years that she was here, do you think you got to know her fairly well?
yes.
Just briefly, can you give me a couple of sentences, description of how you would describe her?
Sure. I have a smile on my face because that's the way she was. She just would brighten up a room, vivacious, intelligent, life of a party.
Was she a nice person?
Oh, very much so.
Would you call her friendly?
Yes,
Let me ask you, did you get a call on December 24th, 2002 from Sharon?
yes,
Can you describe that call for the jury?
yes. Do you want me to tell the time or?
Sure, yeah. I'll ask you more questions in a minute, but just take me through that time log.
Okay. When I received the call, I wasn't quite sure who was on the other end for a moment because Sharon was a little bit hysterical, and I knew that something was important, that she needed me. And I wasn't quite sure what she said to me, but I knew that there was a problem with Lacey or Mackenzie. I didn't know what it was. I immediately went to her house.
Okay. And when you got there, what happened when you got to the house?
When I walked in, Ron was on the phone. Sharon greeted me at the door and almost literally fell into my arms in hysterics.
Sharon did?
Sharon did. She said Lacey's missing.
And what did you see what Ron was doing at the time?
Yes, he was in the background on the phone.
Okay, and do you know who he was calling?
He was talking to hospitals and police officers.
After, what happened next? Where did you go next?
We didn't stay there long. Sharon wanted to go to the park to search for Lacey, so we left shortly after I arrived to pick up Sharon, and we went to the park, just the two of us.
And what happened when you got to the park?
Sharon and I were walking around the park looking for Lacey.
What was going on, What were you doing?
Basically with Sharon,
Okay.
walking around, talking, looking, calling her name.
Mm-hmm.
and just searching.
And what was Sharon doing?
The same.
At some point, did a jogger or somebody run by?
Yes, there was a jogger who was in the vicinity in the park, and Sharon went up to the jogger and found out that he was a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a cell phone, and he started calling hospitals.
Okay, and what happened next?
I believe what happened next, to my recollection, is we spotted a few more people in the park that we recognized. One was Scott in the distance, and one was Zach.
Who's Zach?
Zach is Amy's half-brother, Amy's brother.
Okay, and did you go up to them?
Zach started coming up to us, and at that time, Scott started coming towards us as well.
And what happened when you first approached the defendant, Scott Peterson? Well, she said they approached. Oh, okay. Did you speak to him?
I didn't, but Sharon did.
And what was his demeanor?
Pretty calm.
Okay, and if you compare his demeanor against Sharon's, did you notice a contrast?
There was no comparison. He seemed very calm. She was pretty hysterical.
Okay, what happened next?
We stayed there for a bit. Sharon tried to talk to Scott for a little bit. All of a sudden, more people started arriving. Police officers, my husband. I called him, some more people for reinforcements, some friends.
Okay, how long do you think you were down there in the park?
I'm going to guess about 15 minutes, maybe a little longer.
You're saying a guess, but is that like an estimate?
It's an estimate.
Okay, and after you left the park, we've heard testimony that Sharon went back to the house. Is that what you did?
When we left the park, we went to Lacey's house.
Okay, you went back to 523 Covina.
Correct.
Right. When you were up at that house, did you ever go inside the house?
No.
But where did you stay at the house?
We were in front of the house and more people were arriving. We were basically hanging out. We weren't allowed to go in the house.
Okay, and family members and other folks were arriving?
Family members, friends, relatives, yes.
And?
Police officers.
Okay. Where at the house were you? Were you guys just kind of standing?
Pretty much on the front lawn, in the street, but pretty much on the front lawn, taking over the neighborhood.
There were a lot of people coming?
A lot of people gathered, yes.
Okay, at some point that evening, did you speak to Scott Peterson up at the house area?
Yes, he came up to me.
And who was with you when he came up to you?
When he came to speak to me, I was standing there by myself on the front lawn.
And where were you standing?
On the front lawn.
And there's a diagram behind you. Do you recognize that diagram, the area at 523 Covina? You can put your glasses on if you need to. You can lead her to it. The bottom part, of course, is the street.
Yes.
The parking area is on the right. Do you recognize that as their home?
Yes.
And those areas marked lawn, that's the front yard?
Yes.
And where you were standing when the defendant came up to you?
I'd say approximately in this vicinity.
Somewhere on the lawn?
Correct.
And it was just you?
At that particular moment, I was standing by myself.
Okay, but around you, other parts of the street or the yard, were there other people?
Yes.
And what did the defendant say to you?
He put up his hands and he said, I wouldn't be surprised if they find blood on my truck because I cut my hands all the time. I'm a hunter. I'm a fisher, sportsman, outdoorsman. One of those terms, but I don't recall, but something to that effect.
And had you said anything to him
No.
to make him give you this comment?
No. He came up to me and I'm standing there by myself and I was perplexed why he said it.
When you were down, other than when Sharon went up to him and spoke to him down in the park, had you spoke to him at any other time during that evening?
No.
Let me lead with this. I'm sorry. At the 24th, and after you talked to him, the rest of the night, did you basically just kind of do the same thing, stand out there on the front lawn?
Yes,
And at some point, did the officers tell you to leave or say that you should probably go home? Some words to that effect.
yes, because there was nothing else that we could do out there at the time of night. We couldn't go into the house.
Do you remember what time it was when you left?
I'm thinking close to midnight.
And again, is that kind of an estimate?
Yes,
All right. Prior to the 24th, I think your prior statement was a couple of weeks or a month. Did you go to the movies with Lacey and Sharon?
yes,
And did Lacey tell you about a time when she had gotten dizzy or lightheaded when she was walking the dog?
she did. She told me and Sharon at that time that she had an incident where she got a little lightheaded.
And did she tell you at that time anything else about, did she tell you anything else about how she was feeling about her pregnancy or her physical feelings at the time at the movies?
Feeling very tired, heavy and tired.
Do you remember she used those words, heavy and tired?
She did use the word tired, and I believe she used the word heavy.
Now after this, after the 24th, were you present at all with Sharon in that, the week after the 24th and into January when everybody was kind of getting together to try and search for Lacey and keep her picture out there? Were you with Sharon at all during that time?
We were together most of the time.
And why were you there?
For support as a best friend would be. Her chauffeur, confidant, whatever she needed. I was trying to be there for her.
And during that time, did you ever see, in the first couple of weeks or so, after the 24th of December, did you ever see Sharon try to talk to the defendant about what happened during the day of the 24th?
Yes.
And how many times do you think you saw her approach the defendant or just say, can you tell me about what happened, that kind of thing?
Mm-mm.
No, you're above that.
Oh, can I use the word several? Because it was definitely more than once.
Mm-hmm.
How many times, I don't know, but there were several instances when Sharon tried to get on the one-to-one with Scott, and his comment was always, gotta go.
And would he do anything when he said that to her?
Would he do anything
Mm-hmm.
other than rush off?
Right.
Got to go, and he left.
And so those were the words you remember him using?
Yes. And then on one occasion, at least one time, I remember him saying that he had to go do flyers, but always got to go.
And did you ever see Sharon, try to push him like, well, wait a minute, I want to hear what happened?
She tried several times to get him to sit down and talk to her.
And did you ever actually see him sit down and talk to her?
There was one instance in the command center
Mm-hmm.
that she did get him behind a closed door.
Was that at the volunteer center?
Yes, volunteer center, command center, yes.
Okay, the thing at the Red Lion.
Yes,
Other than that time, did you ever see him, or were you ever present when he sat down and told her what had happened?
no,
No further questions, Your Honor. Okay, and this is the cross-examination by Pat Harris. Good afternoon.
good afternoon.
I believe you just testified that Ms. Rocha made numerous attempts to talk to Scott Peterson, and he rebuked in her attempts to talk about it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Were you present in Ms. Rocha's home on the night that detectives came in? Detective Grogan specifically, I believe, came in and installed a recording device?
Yes,
And you recall that while you were there with Mr. Peterson, Mr. Peterson called the home and talked to Miss Rocha and specifically asked if he could come over to the house and talk to Sharon about the situation and what had happened. Do you recall that?
I recall being there when he called.
Okay. You recall seeing Detective Grogan shake his head and tell Sharon, "Say no. Don't let him come over."
I don't recall.
You don't remember that?
I don't remember that.
But you were in the room at the time.
I was in the house at the time.
So when they were actually installing the listening device, well, let me back up. Did you answer the phone when Scott called?
That particular time, possibly. I did answer the phone a few times when Scott called.
Okay. And so when you turned over the phone to Sharon Rocha, you left the room at that point?
I believe so, to my recollection.
So you did not actually see Detective Grogan tell Ms. Rocha, "No, don't let him come over."
No, not that I recall.
Okay, you had been interviewed by the Modesto Police Department prior to when, I believe, Detective Borchini interviewed originally. Is that correct?
No.
I'm sorry. Who did interview you?
Detective Grogan?
He was your initial interview?
Yes.
And when Detective Grogan interviewed you at that point, the first time, you never mentioned this incident that happened the night of December 24th, where Scott allegedly said that they never found blood. You didn't tell them at that point, did you?
On my initial interview? Will you please repeat that?
On your initial interview, you said it was with Detective Grogan. Your initial interview, you didn't tell Detective Grogan this comment that you just testified to about Scott coming up saying, "There's blood. If they find blood anywhere, if they find blood in the truck," I believe is what you testified to today.
Can I elaborate on that?
Well, first you have to answer the question, then you can explain your answer. You didn't mention in that?
That's not true. I need to elaborate.
Well, Your Honor, can I get the... Wait a minute. She can answer the question. You said it's not true. You can explain the answer.
Thank you. My initial time that I talked to Detective Grogan about the hands was a day in February of 2003. Sharon and I were at a friend's house, and we were sitting down making notes on things that we remembered from the 24th. And then I recalled it. At that time, I called Detective Grogan right away. So it was before my interview with him. And the day that I called him, I can't be specific on the date. However, it was the night before Scott appeared on the Diane Sawyer show. I do remember that vividly because if I would have called him afterwards, my story wouldn't have any credibility.
Okay, let's talk about that.
All right.
This was the first time you had talked to anybody at the Modesto Police Department. Is that your testimony?
As far as other than saying hi, yes.
Okay, so no one interviewed you prior to that.
No.
Now you talk about, on this particular date, that you were at a friend's house. What friend's house were you at the time?
Patty Amador?
And in fact, it was Ms. Amandor, yourself, and Ms. Rocha who were all present, correct?
And another person.
Who was the other person?
Lynn Perrieria? Sharon and I were the only two sitting at the table doing notes. They were not sitting at the table with us.
Well, you said that what was going on was that you were reviewing notes about what you could remember had happened on the night of December 24th.
Correct.
Okay. And you said, as soon as you recalled, you got on the phone with Detective Grogan, you called him, and you told him exactly what you remembered.
Sharon asked me to, yes.
Actually, what happened that night, that day, is Patty Amandor got on the phone first, and she called about 20 minutes earlier and had talked to Detective Grogan and told him some wild rumor that you guys had been discussing about Lacey going to the Serenity Spa and telling some hairdresser manicurist, that there were weights and that she was scared to stop because he had concrete weights that he was making. Objection, Your Honor. That's argumentative and fully speculative. It goes to the state of mind of the entire party that was there that day. The state of mind of the entire party is not an issue. Were you aware that phone call was made?
No.
All right. You do not recall Ms. Amandor sitting in that house 20 minutes earlier calling Detective Grogan and telling him this story?
I do not recall that. A lot of conversations took place. I don't recall it.
A lot of conversations took place that day, didn't they?
Oh, about that day, I don't know. I'm just saying a lot of conversations over the past year and a half have taken place. Some I cannot remember.
That day in particular, you were sitting around the house thinking of all the things that you could think of in order to call.
Sharon and I were.
Exactly.
Yes.
And Patty Amandor, in fact, called them to tell them about this rumor.
I don't remember that.
Okay, in fact, following a short time later, Sharon Rocha then placed a phone call to Detective Grogan.
And that's when I spoke to him, when Sharon placed the call.
She placed the call, and she actually talked to Detective Grogan first.
Yes,
Right, for some period of time.
to my knowledge.
And when you heard what Sharon Rocha was telling Detective Grogan for the first time, that what she recalled was Scott Peterson using the word missing, this was the first time that she had told the detective that. And that was the phone call she made that day. Is that correct? Objection, Your Honor. It calls for hearsay. Sustained. How does she know? She was in the room. No. How does she know that was the first time that Mrs. Rocha... Let me rephrase the question. Okay. You heard her tell Detective Grogan that Scott used the word missing.
I did not hear her say that. Sharon was in the other room talking to him on the phone.
Okay.
I don't know what she talked to him about.
Okay, so then it's your testimony that basically Ms. Amandor was in another place talking to Detective Grogan, Ms. Rocha was in another place talking to Detective Grogan, and then you got on the phone third. Objection. That misstates the testimony. Sustained. That's not what she said. Okay, then explain to me how the situation worked.
Patty and Lynn were in the house. Sharon and I were sitting at the table. I was unaware of Patty making the phone call at that time. Sharon went to the other room to call the detective. When she was through talking to him, she handed the phone to me.
And when she handed you the phone, you told Detective Grogan this story, that your recollection of the 24th about Scott Peterson coming and making the blood comment.
Correct.
Okay. And this was, for a fact that Sharon Rocha was on the phone prior to your talking to Detective Grogan.
Yes.
Okay, and in fact, what you told him at that time is, if they find blood anywhere, that doesn't mean anything. You didn't mention anything at that point about Scott saying they found blood in the truck.
I didn't say in the truck.
No, you didn't, did you?
No, I don't remember saying in the truck. I remember saying on the truck.
You testified today. You're testifying. Is your testimony today that the blood was on the truck, is what you remember, or in the truck?
I believe Scott was mentioning about the doorknob, the handle, that area of the truck. He didn't say inside the truck. He said on the truck.
Okay. So that night that Scott was discussing the truck, he was coming up to you discussing the truck and what possible blood on the truck.
Correct.
And what you told the police officer, you mentioned the word truck, did you?
To my recollection, what I told the police officer was what I had testified to.
If I can have you take a look, I'm showing her Detective Grogan's report dated January 28th. If you look at the section that's in yellow, just read it to yourself.
Okay.
Just the paragraph right here.
Here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't apparently. I didn't say truck, but
Apparently, you never.
that's what I thought I had told him.
So you never mentioned truck at all, is that correct?
I thought I did.
Okay, by the way, on Christmas Eve, did you go to the movies with Sharon Rocha?
Yes, I did.
And that was from what time to what time?
Approximately 2 to 4.
And so you were there at the movies on Christmas Eve because that's something you enjoyed doing.
It was kind of impromptu. My family had a Christmas Eve gathering in the afternoon, and Sharon tentatively had plans that evening, so we had some time and we decided to take in a movie.
Sure, Christmas Eve.
Sharon and I frequently went to the movies together.
Christmas Eve is a good day to do things because you're off that day. You don't have to work.
Right.
Okay, and then we're going to have redirect by Rick DeStasso. I have a little bit, Your Honor. When you talked to Detective Grogan about this, did you tell him that you previously talked to him about it?
Yes.
Do you know if he noted that in his report?
I'm not sure.
Okay, let me show you this report dated July 9th. Just have a look at this section.
Okay.
Do you have the page number stamp on that? This one is 26027. Thank you. And looking at that report, does that refresh your memory about whether or not Detective Grogan noted that you previously talked to him about that?
Yes.
And did he...
To my knowledge, yes.
Objection. Cause for speculation. Well, it's not in there. It's not speculation. Is it in the report?
It's in the report.
Did you just read it in the report here?
Yes.
And what, to the best of your recollection, as you sit here today, you know, you've read it, you've read this report, I just showed you to refresh your memory.
Yes.
And then you saw what counsel was showing you about the truck or the lack of truck.
Right.
Other than the discrepancy, whether the blood was on the truck, I guess, or somewhere on his hands, can you tell us as you sit here today, what is your best recollection as you sit here today of what he told you?
My reaction?
No, your recollection. Just give me the statement as you remember it.
He came up to me when I was standing in front of the house, and he said, I wouldn't be surprised if they find blood on my truck, because I cut myself frequently. I'm an outdoorsman, sportsman, fisherman, something like that.
And he used some kind of sporting, some kind of word.
Yeah, some kind of sporting terminology.
Okay, do you know exactly what sporting terminology that he used?
No.
Nothing further. And this is the recross by Pat Harris. The judge says, Mr. Harris, do you have any other questions? 1 second, Your Honor. Can I have 1 minute? Yes, of course. Nothing further. Nothing further. Okay, may this witness be excused? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Rickard.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we go to the next one. And that is going to be Gwendolyn May Kemple, who's Sharon's first cousin. I'll give you the thing in Slack again. Okay. All right.
And who am I?
You're Gwendolyn.
I'm Kemple?
Yeah.
Okay.
Get rid of this one. Go over here. Okay. Direct examination by Rick DeStasso. This is June 8th and 9th, 2004. Ms. Kemple, how are you? Well, let me just ask you a preliminary question. Do you know or did you know in your life a Lacey Peterson?
Yes.
And do you know a Sharon Rocha?
Yes.
And Lacey's family?
Yes.
And just how is it that you're related or associated with this family?
Sharon and I are first cousins.
And you live in Modesto?
Yes, I do.
And what is your husband's name?
Harvey.
And have you and Sharon known each other, basically your whole life?
All our lives, yes.
Now, on December 24th of 2002, where were you?
At my home.
And did you have any people over there?
Yes, I did. I had all of our family, all of our close family was there.
Can you give me a guesstimate of how many people there were?
I'd say 25 to 30 people.
And did you receive a call from Ron Gransky sometime around 6:30?
Yes, we did.
And can you tell the jury just briefly what you were told and what you did?
Yes, my husband answered the phone, and it was around 6:30. And Ron was on the other line, and he told Harvey that he had received a phone call.
Objection. Sustained. Yeah, hold on a second.
Okay.
Let me go through a little more specific. You got a phone call?
Yes.
And Ron was saying something, basically, you need to get to the park?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, your husband got a phone call.
Yes.
Did you gather up all the folks that were at your house and head over to the Dry Creek Park area?
Yes, we said that.
Go ahead.
Ron had said that we were needed at the park.
All right, and so did pretty much everyone who was over at your house go over to the park?
All of the adults, yes. The children stayed home.
All right, and where did you go when you got to the park?
I went down by the tennis courts. It's kind of on the other end of the bridge.
And where did your husband go?
He left me off. I rode with him and his brother, and he let me off to be with Sharon. That's where Sharon and Sandy were at the time.
Did you meet up with them?
Yes, I did.
And then your husband went off to search somewhere else?
He went off to search, right.
Did you see Scott Peterson down in the Dry Creek Park area?
Yes, I did.
Did you talk to him at all when he was down there?
No, I did not.
How would you describe his demeanor, if you can, when you saw him down in the Dry Creek area?
His back was towards me at first.
Mm-hmm.
And once he turned around and started walking towards me, he was just walking in a normal stride toward the restrooms.
Now, all right. Did you know, was he screaming out Lacey's name or,
No,
kind of looking in the bushes or running around?
no,
So you say he was walking towards you, and then did you speak to him there?
no.
Okay, what's the next thing that happened?
The next thing that happened was that after Sharon and Sandy left to go to the house, I stayed in the park to wait for her sister.
And did eventually her sister come?
No, she had gone to the house, so I was there by myself.
All right, so you were down at the park by yourself.
Yes.
And how long do you think you stayed down there?
I'd say about 15 to 20 minutes.
Did you see other people searching in the park or in the park where you were down when you were down there?
Yes, there were other people.
Like your family or whatnot?
My daughters came up over the hill. They had been in the park with my two daughters, and my two daughters came towards me.
All right.
When they saw me there.
How did you get, or did you eventually leave the park?
Yes, I did.
And how did you leave the park, and then where did you go?
We took Mackenzie with us, the dog, and my daughters, and went to the house on Covina.
And what happened next? When you got to Covina, what happened?
When I got to Covina, the first thing, of course, I did was go to Sharon, and she had already gotten there. And then I went over and gave Scott a hug.
Did you say anything to him at that time?
Not at that time.
Okay, where was he standing?
He was kind of in the middle of the yard by the tree.
In the lawn portion or on the driveway?
Yes, on the lawn portion.
Okay, what happened next then? What's the next thing that you remember happening there at Covina?
Well, at about that time, other people started arriving, and we were just all talking. There were a lot of neighbors coming out, And we're just talking about where she could have been.
Okay, I just noticed something. We didn't change your name to the new person.
We didn't.
We didn't
It's a new
change it to
person.
Gwendolyn Kemple.
I thought I would have been Kemple.
You're
I've been
Sandy.
Kemple all
You're
along.
Sandy Rickard now. Remember your name on Zoom?
Oh, oops. Yeah.
Okay. So you said we were just on where she could be. Okay. At some point later, did you see Scott standing by his truck in the driveway?
Yes, I did.
And how much later was it from the time when you got up from the park to Covina and then you saw Scott standing there?
From the park to Covina to the time I went to him
Mm-hmm.
at the truck was about, I'd say maybe an hour.
Okay, and did you talk to him?
Yes, I did.
And what did you ask him?
I asked him where he had been that day.
And what did he say?
He said he'd gone fishing.
And did he tell you where?
No, I didn't ask.
Okay. And did you ask him anything else?
I asked him what Lacey was doing that morning when he left.
Can you tell me, as best you can remember, exactly the words you asked him and exactly what he said to you that day?
I said, what was Lacey doing when you left?
Okay, and what were his exact words?
He said she was watching Martha Stewart.
And did you ask him anything else?
Yes, I did.
What did you ask him?
I said, did you talk to her today? And he said, no, I didn't.
And did you ask him anything else at that time? Excuse me, did
At
you ask
that
him anything
time?
else? I'm sorry.
At that time, no.
Did you ask him if he had tried to call her?
Yes, I stated that. If he had talked to her, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, well, let's break this down. Did you ask him if he had tried to call her?
Yes, I did.
And what did he tell you?
I said, did you try to call her? And he said, yes.
Okay, and I guess you followed up then with, did you speak to her?
I said, did you call her again?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yes.
Okay, and did you ask him if he had ever spoken to her that day?
No, I didn't say, have you ever spoken to her today?
And what else did you ask him?
At that time, nothing.
Okay, and then at some time later, did you speak to him again?
Yes, I did.
And how much later was that?
I saw him sitting over on, like, a little brick wall. It was about 30 minutes later.
During that first conversation, did you ask him anything about Lacey's purse?
Not the first time.
Was that the second time?
Yes.
Okay, so when you went over there, you said he was sitting on a little brick wall. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And how much later than the first conversation?
I'd say about 30 minutes.
And who was sitting with him?
No one at that time.
Okay, and so you went up to him again?
Yes.
And what did you ask him?
I asked him what Lacey was wearing that morning.
And okay, are those the exact words you used?
I said, what was Lacey wearing this morning?
Okay, and what did he say?
He said, black pants and a white top.
Did he describe the top in any more detail?
No, he did not.
Okay, let me show you the report and see if this is correct or if this is an error. Do you want to identify it for the record? Yes, I will, Your Honor. It's a report that's dated May 1st, 2003. For the record, for counsel, it's 23912.
Oh, a white long sleeve shirt. Yes, I did say that.
All right, so let me go back then and ask you. As you read that report, does that refresh your memory as exactly how you described it?
Yes, he said black pants and a white long sleeve shirt.
Okay. Did you ask him anything else? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you ask him anything about the clothes?
I asked him what kind of shoes she was wearing.
Okay, and what did he say?
He said tennis shoes.
Did you ask him if any of those clothing items were there at the house?
Yes.
What did he say?
He said, I don't know.
Did you ask him anything about Lacey's purse?
I asked him, yes. I asked him if Lacey's purse was there.
And what did he say?
He said, I don't know.
Did you ask him, well, let me ask you this. Are you aware of what the weather was that day?
Yes.
I mean,
It was cold.
normal December day in Modesto.
Yes.
And how are normal, December days in Modesto?
I believe it was like in the 30s,
Okay.
40s.
And did you ask him anything about Lacey wearing a jacket?
I said, did she have on a jacket?
I'm sorry, Mr. DiStasso. I know, I've got to let her finish. I keep jumping ahead. If you keep jumping on her, then the court reporter's going to have a mess. Right. Go ahead. Give me the exact words you asked him and the exact words he said back.
I said, did she have on a jacket? It was cold. I said, did she have on a jacket? And he said, I don't know. I said, did you see if her jacket was missing? And he said, no.
What was his demeanor during the times that you were having these conversations with him?
Well, he wouldn't look at me. He just answered my questions calmly, just matter of fact.
Had you known him prior to this night?
Yes,
Had you seen him at family functions?
yes.
Okay, so you were not a stranger to him.
No, not at all.
Did you see Scott Peterson, or let me just go here. What time did you leave 523 Covina that night?
Not until, I'd say around 10:30 that night.
And did you go back to 523 Covina the next day?
Yes, I did.
What time did you get there?
Around 8:30 in the morning.
And what was going on there at the house?
Several people were surrounding the house. There was quite a few inside. When I first got there, I'd seen Sharon outside coming around the corner, so I kind of waited for her there, and then I went into the house.
And did you see Scott Peterson?
Yes, I did.
And what was he doing?
He was in the kitchen when I walked in, not really doing anything, just standing in the kitchen at that particular time when I walked in.
How long were you there at the house?
Until around 11:30.
And did you see the defendant there at the house the entire time
Yes,
that you were there?
pretty much so. He wasn't in the same rooms I was in, but he was at the house.
Okay, and what was he doing?
At one time, I saw him on the phone, talking on the phone in the dining room, and later it was said that it was his dad he was talking to.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't really doing anything.
Okay, and does that pretty much cover what you saw on the 24th and the 25th?
Yes,
Okay, let me go back now to a time in November. And do you have a grandson?
yes, I do.
And what's his initials?
TJ.
And was TJ getting any kind of tutoring or anything, some kind of help from Lacey?
I had called Lacey and asked her if she would help TJ with his math.
Okay, and how old is TJ?
He was 13. He was at the time, he would have been 12.
And this was in November of 2002.
Yes,
So Lacey was obviously visibly pregnant.
yes.
Okay, do you remember the exact date when this happened?
No, I don't.
Okay, do you remember if it was in November?
Yes, I do. Early November.
When you went over to their house, did you see the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And did you talk to him about anything about the baby that was coming?
Yes, I did. My daughter and I were down in the living room where he was, and started talking to him about the name of the baby and was he ready to be a dad, play sports.
And what did he say?
Well, I'd ask him if I said, "Are you ready for the football games?" And he said, "No, I don't play football." And I said, "Well, then baseball." He said, "You'll have to practice on your catching and throwing. My grandsons play baseball." So that was just a common thing to say to him. And he said no, and said, "I have friends that can do that." And I said, you didn't play baseball back in school?" And he said no.
Did you ask him in the context of, are you going to teach the baby to play baseball?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay. Did you ask him anything about, was he interested or excited about, teaching the baby anything?
I didn't ask him if he was excited. I just said he better get busy because he's got a job to do.
Then what did he say?
He said he had at that particular time. I thought it was strange because he said, "I've got friends to do that."
Nothing further, Your Honor. Okay, before you start your cross-examination, I'll give you until tomorrow, Mr. Geragos. So the cross-examination by Geragos, June 9th. And we have Ms. Kemple is back on the stand. And Mr. Geragos, I assume you're ready to go. I am, Your Honor. Go ahead. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
If I understand you correctly, it was about 7 o'clock on December 24th when there was a phone call to the house that first alerted you that something was up.
I believe it was 6:30.
Okay, and what time did you leave the house?
Immediately after that.
Okay, and what time did you arrive at the park?
It took us about 10 minutes to get there.
Okay, and you had your husband, Harvey,
Yes,
drives you.
yes.
Okay, and when you got to the park, you saw Sharon first.
I saw Sharon and Sandy standing out in the middle of the park, yes.
Okay, and we got a map up there. It's marked People's 22. Just an overview of the park. Do you remember where you came? Remember where you came into the park? Do you recognize this at all?
Yes,
You can leave your chair. You can stand up and walk over there if you want.
it might be better.
State what it purports to represent. The tennis courts are there.
Right, that's where he left me off, is right there in front of the tennis courts.
Do you remember where Sharon was?
Sharon was in the grassy area right there.
Okay, now you can return to your seat if you want. As you walked up, let's see, Harvey dropped you off or you got out of the car.
Yes,
And at that point, you saw Sharon and Sandy.
yes.
And Scott was about 50 to 60 feet away from them.
I'm not real good at feet, but yes.
I'll tell you, that pole, from where you're seated to that pole, is 40 feet.
I think it was further away than that. Yes, I would say more like 75 then.
Okay, if that's 40 being this pole that I'm pointing out,
Uh-huh.
with that picture on it, you're saying about 30
Right, it
feet past that.
was.
Excuse me, can you let him finish the question before you answer?
Oh,
Thank you. It wasn't me this time. And his back, Scott's back was to you and to Sharon, correct?
yes.
Okay, now at that point, it's somewhere around 6:40, 6:45.
Yes, sir.
Dark out.
Getting dark, yes.
Getting dark out.
Getting dark.
Now, how long were you down in the park?
I was down there about 45 minutes.
Okay, and Sharon was hysterical at this point.
Yes,
And Sandy was pretty much...
so was everyone.
Okay, well, how long? Where did you look in the park?
I didn't actually look in the park.
Okay, what?
I wasn't looking at that time.
Okay, well, what did you do?
I was standing with Sharon.
Standing with Sharon?
Yes.
Okay. Then did you go up to the house?
Yes.
How did you get to the house?
With my daughters.
Okay. Did they drive you?
In their car.
And when they drove you to the house, how long was it before you gave Scott the hug that you described yesterday?
Maybe 5 minutes.
Okay. And how long before you talked to him?
About 30 minutes.
And when you talked to him, were the police around?
No.
Were there any people in the immediate vicinity?
They were around us, but not right by me. No.
And who were the other people that were around you?
Friends that had come up. I did see a police officer over to my left. I believe Ron was standing in the yard, but no one was standing by me.
Okay. Now the next thing that you did is you went through yesterday and you said that you questioned Scott, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and then after you questioned him, at some point you were sent, the police say leave. Is that correct?
Excuse me?
The police said to leave.
No.
Everybody was told to leave.
No.
Did you just leave on your own?
No. I didn't leave until late that evening.
That's what I mean. At some point later in the evening, you were told, or the police said, everybody should go home.
Well, Detective Brashini was taking Scott in his car away. So we just left because they said they wanted the park clear.
Okay, so what time was that?
I think it was around 10:30.
At night?
Yes.
And then you came back to the Kavina house on the morning of Christmas morning.
Christmas morning.
The next day. At what time was that?
About 8:30.
Okay, was Scott home then?
Yes, he was.
And you stayed there until what time?
About 11:30.
Okay, was Scott home all 3 hours from 8:30 until 11:30?
I saw him coming in and out of the house.
Okay, did you see him putting up flyers?
No,
Did you see him with Brent Rocha?
I did not see him with Brent. No,
You didn't see him with Brent.
no,
How about at 10:30? Was he in the house at 10:30?
I couldn't tell you that.
Okay.
If he was in there at 10:30,
And you were there from 8:30 to
11:30,
11:30, and it's your testimony. Didn't you tell the police that Scott was there? He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't assisting. He was just in the house from 8:30 until 11:30. Isn't that what you told
I said I was there
Detective Grogan?
from 8:30 to 11:30.
Yeah. And didn't you tell Detective Grogan on Christmas Day from 8:30 until 11:30 Scott was there, he wasn't doing anything? He wants to know if that's what you told Detective Grogan.
That he wasn't doing anything?
Right. He wasn't
wasn't
assisting in the
assisting.
search. You thought it was odd.
Right, he wasn't outside. He was in and out of the house.
Okay, and he wasn't assisting in the search.
No, he was not.
He wasn't putting up flyers.
No, he was not.
He wasn't with Brent Rocha. Didn't go get tape to go get the flyers.
I did not see him leave with Brent.
Okay, are you sure of that? You're sure of that you're sure of everything else?
I did not see him leave with Brent.
You're sure he wasn't in the house?
No, I said he was in and out of the house from 8:30 until 11:30, the time I was there.
Okay, well, if he was in and out of the house, how do you know when he was doing outside?
I don't know what he was doing outside.
Well, why did you tell the police that you didn't think he was doing anything?
I didn't see him doing anything.
Oh,
I didn't see him doing anything.
what? So if you didn't see him, did that mean he didn't do it?
I don't know.
Okay, did you tell the police he didn't do anything?
I did not. I said I didn't see him doing anything.
And you didn't see Brent Rocha at all that morning.
Sure, I saw Brent
Where did you see Brent?
in the house, outside.
That this morning too, between 8:30 and 11:30.
Oh, gosh. I don't know what time. I can't say that I know what time I saw Brent.
I've got
I was there between 8:30 and 11:30.
23913, which is a May 1st report by Grogan. You want to read that paragraph that's yellow highlighted, just to yourself. Does that refresh your recollection as to what you told the police?
Has nothing to do with Brent.
Does that refresh your recollection as to what you told
Yes,
the police? Did you tell the police that you remained at the house from 9 until 11:30 a.m.?
yes,
Did you tell them that Scott and Sharon were present in the house during that time?
yes,
Did you tell them that there were other people that came in and out of the house that were part of the search parties? However, Scott never left the house to assist in the search that day.
I never saw Scott assist in the search that day.
Did you say that he never left the house to assist in the search?
I might have said he never had left the house.
Okay, did you say that you felt it was very odd that he was not assisting in the search for his wife when so many others were actively searching the park?
Yes, I said that.
Well, how do you know if he left the house? Today you testified he left the house, he was in and out, right?
In and out.
All right, you never told the police.
By leaving the house, I meant the premises.
Did you ever tell the police that? Because it didn't make it into the report.
Did I tell the police what?
That he was in and out.
I believe I did.
Okay, well here it says that he never left the house. Isn't that what you told the police, that he never left the house? If you recall, Mrs. Kemple, is that what you told the police?
Can I say something?
Yes.
That leaving the house meaning, when I say leaving the house, is coming from inside the house, outside the house.
From inside the house going outside.
Right, leaving the house. Are you asking if he left in a car? Is that leaving the home?
Did you watch where he went when he left your eyesight?
No,
Okay, did you tell the police that he never left the house?
I don't remember saying that.
Did you say that there were other people assisting in the search, but he wasn't? Did you tell the police that?
At that, yes, he was not in the park
Okay, and you know that because?
because of other people that were in the park.
Well, were you in the park?
That morning, yes, I was in the park also.
I thought you were in the house.
No, I'm sorry. No, not that morning. I did not go to the park that morning. No.
Why don't we try to reconstruct how you came to the police? You didn't go to the police until May 1st. Is that correct?
Right.
So that would have been after Scott was arrested.
Yes.
And so then, all of a sudden you have an epiphany and you remember all of these details. And
No.
hey, Scott's arrested. I better call the police and tell them all this stuff.
Well, kind of.
Okay, and now was that after you had already talked to all of your girlfriends about what had happened?
No.
Had you talked to Sharon about what happened?
I started thinking about things that I thought were a little unusual, and I mentioned it to Sharon. She goes, "Don't tell me, tell Grogan."
Okay, and did you talk to your husband, Harvey?
About
These? I'm sorry. Wait. Mr. Garagos, you're stepping on her answer. Talk to your husband, Harvey, about her sudden epiphany or her recollection.
it wasn't sudden.
It wasn't sudden?
No.
It was sometime 2 weeks after he got arrested. All of a sudden you...
No, it had been from the beginning.
Please, don't talk on top of his question. You've got to wait so she can finish the question, and then you can answer.
Okay,
You never called the police up until May 1st, correct?
that's correct.
Okay. You never told anybody that you had been in the house from 9 to 11:30 and that Scott was not there assisting in the search until May 1st.
No one asked me.
No one asked you, but you volunteered it. You thought that it would be helpful to the investigation.
Yes, I did.
And you were trying to be helpful as you could be, when you said that he never left the house and he never assisted in the search, right?
Would you say that again?
You thought that was being helpful. You were making some helpful observations.
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions. May Miss Kemple be excused, Mr. Gistasso? That's fine, Your Honor. I have no questions. Mrs. Kemple, thank you. You're excused.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see who we have next. Okay, so that was Gwendolyn May, right? Okay, we did that. Why is it? Oh, okay, that was twice. Okay, that's the second time. Then we have Harvey. Okay, let's do Harvey.
Okay, hang on.
Okay, I'm going to send this to you. This is about the barbecue chicken. I'm going to get hungry during this, I bet.
Okay, hang on. Gotta get out of this.
I wrote
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, let me go there now.
I'm Harvey up for now, so.
Yeah, Harvey, I'm already hungry thinking about the barbecue chicken.
Only if it's burnt.
All right, so this one, I'm going to get rid of this one. Go here. Okay, Harvey. Okay, next witness, please. Harvey Kemple is the next witness. Harvey Kemple, okay. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state under penalty of perjury that the evidence you shall give in the matters now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Be seated. State and spell your name for the record.
Harvey Thomas Kemple. HarveyKemple.
Thank you. Mr. Distasso. Mr. Kemple, do you know Lacey Peterson and the Sharon Rocha family?
Yes, I do.
How is it that you know them?
I was flattered by the article that I was her uncle, but that isn't the case. I'm related through marriage. I'm a cousin.
And your wife is Gwen Kemple?
Yes, it is.
And she is Sharon's cousin.
Correct.
Do you live in Modesto?
Yes, I do. Lived there all my life.
How far is it from your house to 523 Covina?
Approximately, I would say 5.5, 6 miles, something like that.
And on the 24th, did you receive a phone call from Ron Gransky?
Yes, I did.
And just basically, what did he tell you? He told you Lacey's missing. We need you to come down. Can you come down and meet us in the park?
Correct.
Okay, and you took your wife and you went down into the park?
Yes, along with a lot of other family members, yes.
Okay, and can you give me just some guesstimate of how many family members you had at your house that day?
Well, throughout the day, on and off, there were probably over 45, but at that particular time that he called, there was probably 30 to 32 people there in the family.
And did everybody, or at least the adults, all go down and start searching the park?
Every adult that was there left the house and went to look.
And can you just very briefly take us through, you dropped your wife off at the tennis courts?
Well, I exited my truck at the at the tennis courts also.
Okay.
As it worked out, I supplied everybody with flashlights that was at the house, that I had at the house. We happened to enter at the tennis courts because this is where they said when Ron called, he mentioned the tennis courts. Other family members entered from different areas at the park, but I exited there with my brother and started hollering Lacey's name and looking immediately.
All right. Go question and answer. Okay. And then you said, so you're at the tennis courts with your brother. Are other family members kind of going at each end of the park?
I found that out later. I didn't realize that that was going to happen.
Okay. While you were in the park, where did you search?
I searched from the tennis courts west heading towards Lacey's and Scott's house.
Okay, just looking at People's 22 real quickly. Let me lead you through there so the jury knows what we're talking about. You started here at the tennis courts, right?
Yes,
And then you worked your way west, which would have been down along this red line on People's 22.
correct.
And you eventually ended up at where the trail leads to where Covina is.
Yes.
Okay.
And I went beyond that also throughout the evening.
Okay, so you also worked your way past that trail entrance.
Oh, well, clear down to what I know as La Loma Bridge.
Is that a bridge that crosses over the creek?
Yes, it is.
All right, and when you were down there, did you run into or see other family members
Oh, yeah.
searching too?
We had made phone calls. I would say before 9 o'clock, there was approximately, of additional family members and friends, there were probably 80 people in the park. Easy.
So as you're walking down the thing, you're running into people that you recognize.
Yes. And we're conversing, talking. Some of us had run across homeless people, asking questions, seeing other people there that were there. One gentleman that was a jogger and in fact borrowed my wife's cell phone and called the hospital, thinking that because he asked that question immediately.
Okay. After how long do you think you were down in the park area before you went up the trail to Covina?
I'm just guessing maybe 30, 35 minutes, something like that.
And so then did you walk up that trail that leads from down in the park?
Yes, I did.
Up to Covina?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe for the jury, how would you describe that trail?
Rough. Very, very rough.
Is it,
I had a hard time going up because of the boots that I had on were smooth-soled. And because of the mud and the rocks and the steepness, I had a hard time getting myself up.
all right,
Yeah.
and is it a paved trail?
No.
It's dirt?
At one time, it looked like it had tried to be asphalted or something, but that had broken up through the years. It was a rough situation.
Okay. Hang on one second.
So
So you got up the trail, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes.
And did you walk down to 523 Covina?
Yes, I did.
And when you were there, did you talk to the defendant, in this case, Scott Peterson?
I tried to at first. He was on a cell phone at his driveway. I approached, walking back and forth. I stood there. Didn't really acknowledge me. I didn't really acknowledge him. At that particular time, he was on his cell phone for quite some time.
And was there anyone else around him?
There was. By that time, there was quite a few people in that general vicinity of family members and friends, yes.
Sorry. Was there anyone, when you say the general vicinity, I guess what I'm saying?
Within a few feet, I mean.
Okay.
We were all We were all from this young lady to myself away. I would say there were quite a few people.
What is that? Probably 3 or 4 feet?
Yeah, 4 or 5 feet.
Okay, and so you said the defendant was talking on his cell phone?
Yes,
And you recognize Scott Peterson as he sits in court today?
yes, I do.
Okay. And did you eventually get a chance to talk to him?
Yes.
And what did you ask him?
I asked him where she might have gone and what she was wearing.
And what did he say?
He said he thought she would be back. He said he thought she would be taking the dog Mackenzie down towards the tennis courts. That's normally where she walked, and that she was wearing black and white the last time he saw her.
All right, and did you ask him anything else?
At that particular time, I didn't. It was later on that I did.
Okay, let's go through this then. So at that time, you just asked him, hey, where do you think Lacey went?
Right,
And he told you that.
right,
And then you said, what was she wearing?
yes.
And now let me ask you this. Did it look like when you were interviewed by the police in June, let me show you something in here about the clothing description that the defendant gave you. And let me ask you if this is correct. What are you showing, Mr. DeStasso? Let's see. It's a report of investigator Bertolato on June 16th. Well, I don't know if this is proper because he hasn't said he needed to have his recollection refreshed. Yeah, I was waiting for that to come. He hasn't said he doesn't remember. Okay, that's fine. It looks like you originally told the police officer that, objection, that's leading. Sustained. Wait, do you recall exactly what you told the police as to what Lacey Peterson was wearing according to the defendant? Do you recall exactly?
Black pants and white top.
Black pants and a white top.
Yes.
All right. All right. After you talked with him there at the house, then where did you go?
I was around that immediate area for just a little while, talking to other family members and other friends that had started arriving up towards their home. I went back over to Scott and I asked him where had he been? Why was Lacey down in the park by herself? Where was she? Where was he?
And when you asked him that, where did that conversation take place?
Right there on the same area as his driveway.
Okay. And was anyone around when you asked him that?
Again, there were people around within feet of us standing there.
Okay. So same kind of thing. People milling around in the driveway, but was anyone else part of the conversation that you had with him?
You know, I couldn't say that for a fact. No, I don't know. I really don't.
Okay. And what did he tell you? Where did he tell you he had been that day?
He told me he went to play golf, and I said, golf? I immediately started heading back down to the park to find my brother that had been looking with me.
Okay. And at any time that night, did Scott Peterson tell you that he had been fishing that day?
I didn't.
Hold on. I want to get your memory of exactly just what he told you, not what someone else may have told you.
No, he did not tell me that.
Okay. Then let me ask you a couple of questions. Have you ever been, prior to that night, have you ever been over to Scott Peterson's house?
Yes, I have.
At 523 Covina?
Yes, I have.
Did you ever have contact with their dog, Mackenzie?
Contact. Yeah. I mean, yes.
What I mean,
The dog was in the backyard and so on. Yes.
right. When you were there, did you see the dog?
Yes, I did.
When, and we've heard it described as just kind of, a big, playful kind of golden retriever dog.
That's, yeah, a good description, yes.
Was the dog Did you observe anything about the dog being protective of the home or anything like that?
Oh, sure.
Can you describe that for us?
Mackenzie. Mackenzie was very protective. The last time I had an incident to be actually at Scott and Lacey's house was July 4th. We had gone there for a barbecue. We had just had their pool, they had just had their pool finished, and they had a barbecue at their house. I was carrying in some various things, Cokes, ice chest, and so on. Mackenzie, each time I came up to the gate, was a protective dog. He growled and barked, and until Lacey said, "It's okay," then he backed up and would allow me to come through. They have like a picket gate there, so to speak, and everything was fine once I got there. But Mackenzie was a protective dog, just like so many other people have.
Okay. Now, after the 24th, and we've heard basically that at some point everyone went home that night.
It was after the police department said that they were going to scour the park with the dogs and helicopter. They wanted everyone out because we had ran across approximately a dozen homeless people and were questioning them, and so they said that they wanted to question them.
Okay, and so then did you all, or at least did you and your wife go back to your house?
No, we went back to Lacey and Scott's house.
Okay.
And then eventually I left. I just got into the later hours, and yes, I went back home. My wife went over to Sharon and Ron's.
The next day, and just over the next couple of days, were you aware that the volunteer center got set up at the Red Lion Hotel?
Yes,
And were you involved at all in going out and searching areas and trying to look for Lacey?
for many, many days at the very, very beginning, just day in and day out.
When do you think you first started searching?
The very first day that it was, we searched Christmas morning. We, and I mean this, by family members that were still at my residence, the very next morning, after the police department had more or less said that they'd looked through the park, we went back over and looked at areas that we thought might be suspicious, looking in the creek area. I was born and raised in that town, traveled that creek many, many times, and thought that there might be some areas that she possibly could have slipped into or whatever.
Okay.
So I went back.
Okay. When you're talking about the creek,
Dry Creek.
you're talking about the Dry Creek area.
Correct.
Did you, over the course of any other day, search other areas?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Can you just give me, you don't need to list every single one. Can you just give us some idea of what you did?
I covered the Crow's Landing area, which is toward the west side, the Paradise area, which is west side, northerly up McHenry Avenue. I don't think there wasn't a direction that I didn't take some of my own children with me and other family members, and even by myself, and look in every direction that I could think of.
How long did you personally or recruit other family members to do like kind of this search throughout Stanislaus County?
Up until the day she was found.
So you continued searching off and on until she was found?
Yes.
While you were at the volunteer center, did you see the defendant, Scott Peterson?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell the jury when would you generally see him there at the volunteer center?
Mainly early in the morning. I'm an early riser just because of the businesses that I'm in. I usually arrive there early to pick up more flyers, and that's when I would see Scott.
And just so the jury knows kind of a little bit about you, what kind of business are you in?
I'm in construction,
Okay.
so we get up early.
Right. Construction work generally is early and kind of ends early.
Yes,
All right. So you said you would see Scott Peterson there in the morning?
yes,
And did you ever have an occasion when did you ever, trying to figure out the best way to phrase this, but did you ever go with Scott Peterson and hang up flyers or anything like that?
No, throughout the whole time, normally we would, a lot of us would see one another on a day-to-day basis of looking and see one another putting up flyers. I'd never seen Scott putting out flyers, but that one morning I asked him, which direction are you heading? And
Okay, wait a minute. Let me stop you for a second. So at some point during this time that you were at the volunteer center, did you speak to the defendant?
yes,
Say hey, and he told you he was going to hang flyers?
yes.
And did you ask him, oh, okay, where are you going?
Yeah, I asked him what direction he thought he was going to be hanging flyers.
What time of the morning was this?
This was about, I'm guessing 9 o'clock, say?
9 o'clock?
Yeah, 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Go ahead. And what happened then during that time? What did you do?
Well, I thought maybe I would see him in that general vicinity sometime that day. And so he left, I left. It just so happened that I was leaving the parking lot in my pickup. I saw Scott, and I have to assume it was either his father's pickup or his brother's pickup. It was very similar to his own, but I don't know whose it was for certain.
Okay, so you saw him in some pickup?
Yes.
You did recognize that it was him?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And what happened next then?
He turned, he went out of the Red Lion Inn and said he was going in the Paradise Road area, which I know is in West Modesto. From leaving the Red Lion, he would have to turn left to get in that direction. It just so happened when I saw him leaving, he turned right. And I thought that was a little peculiar, but I didn't pay too much attention to it. I went the same direction thinking, well, gee, I was going to catch up with him and tell him it's back over in the other area.
But, as it was... Oh, sorry. That's you too.
But as it was, I was a few cars behind him.
And did you follow him?
Yes, I did.
And where did he go?
To the mall in Modesto, which is located on Sisk Avenue, and turned into the mall.
And when he turned into the mall, did you see him hang up any flyers?
No, I mean, that was early in the morning. The mall wasn't even open, and he just pulled into the parking lot.
And did you pull up next to him or talk to him?
No, I didn't. Don't ask me why I didn't. I don't know why. I thought it was strange that he was there, so I just pulled over to the side and watched, thinking he was going to meet up with someone else, maybe. Maybe they were going to canvass the whole mall area. I didn't know at that time. I wasn't thinking about that.
And how long did you sit there in the parking lot, just watching him, I guess?
45 minutes. He he sat there and I sat there.
And then what happened? What happened next?
I left.
At the times you were there, did you ever see him get out of his car?
No, I wasn't that close. I was back a little ways.
Was there ever another occasion? What month was this all taking place?
This was a command center that was set up almost immediately. So this was the very beginning of January.
And was there ever another occasion when you asked the defendant about where he was going to hang up flyers?
Well, and can I say why?
Well, you have to just answer the question. If he wants to know why, he'll ask you. Why, yeah. Why don't you just tell us why this was all going on?
Well, because of you had asked me earlier about him when he said he went to play golf. I had learned after that same evening.
Objection, non-responsive, calls for hearsay. Well, it's not... What was the question again? Why? Why did you...
because I was suspicious.
Objection. Yeah, hold on a second. Hold on. Objection. Non-responsive. Wait, I haven't... Motion to strike. I haven't heard the question yet. I want to strike the answer. The part of the answer can go out. The jury will disregard. Yes. What is the question? Why? Why were you questioning the defendant about where he was going to hang up flyers, and why did you follow him on these occasions?
When he told me he went to play golf, I learned from my wife that same evening, while I was looking in the park for Lacey, that he told my wife that he went fishing.
And?
So I was very suspicious the very first night. That's why I followed him to the mall. And I hung back a little bit to see what the heck was happening.
You're talking about the first time in January.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And then the second, was there another time when you asked him where he was going to hang up flyers and you followed him again?
No, I became suspicious that first time.
Objection. Non-responsive. Yeah, you have to answer the question, Mr. Kemple, or else we're going to get these objections. You want to ask the question again? Right. So, go ahead. You became suspicious the first night?
Correct.
And then you followed him the first time?
Yes.
And he didn't go where he told you?
Correct.
Now, what's the question? Okay. So what then? What's the next thing that happened about whether with him hanging up flyers and you followed him?
I followed him from the command center, and when he had rented a car, after they had impounded the truck, I followed him, and he went to a golf course in northern Modesto.
Okay. And had you previously asked the defendant where he was going to go that day?
No, I hadn't. I just followed him from the command center.
And then he went to a golf course, and what time of day was that?
That was very early in the morning. I'm guessing again at about 9:30.
And what was the name of this golf course?
Del Rio Golf Course.
And did you see him pull into the course?
I saw him pull into the parking lot, and I kept going.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor. Okay. This is cross-examination by Pat Harris. Mr. Harris, go ahead. Good morning, Mr. Kemple.
Good morning.
If I understand your testimony, you stated that when you were standing in the driveway, you asked Scott what he had been doing that day, and he said he had been golfing. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you said at that point that you left to go tell Mr. Ron Gransky down in the park.
No, I left. I left that area to go find my brother that was down in the park looking still.
I'm sorry. Who is your brother?
Bob Kemple.
All right.
Yes.
And when you left that area at the time, did you mention to anyone at all that Scott had told you that he had gone golfing?
I mentioned it to my brother.
You told your brother?
Yes, when I went back down to the park.
Okay, at any point in time, did you mention it? And I understand from what your testimony is, you were a volunteer at the center pretty much every day.
Oh, you bet.
You were determined that you were going to help find Lacey.
You betcha.
And you were around, gosh, I guess at the volunteer center, hundreds of people at the volunteer center over the course of the first 3 weeks or so.
Thousands.
Thousands. And over the course of the 3 or 4 weeks that your volunteer center was open, you helped organize and you helped work with these thousands of people.
I helped pass out flyers and organize some of my family members, yes.
And you were very close with the Rocha family.
Very much so.
You spent a lot of time talking with Ron and Sharon and some others, I assume.
On and off, yes. Yes, by all means.
And I would assume other family members, Brent, Rose, talking to.
Oh, sure.
At any point during any of this time, did you ever mention to any single person that Scott Peterson told you that he had been golfing that day?
Oh, by all means.
So you told all of them.
I told my brother, I told my daughters. This was after my daughters had told me that he was at work.
You told everybody you could think of Scott Peterson had been golfing that day.
You're darn right I did.
Absolutely. So the first time the police contacted you was in June, almost 6 months, excuse me. A little over 6 months after Lacey had disappeared. Is that correct?
Sometime. Yeah, I'd spoken to other officers even that evening.
You spoke to other officers?
Correct.
And
That evening that we were in the park area.
And did you tell any officer that Scott had told you he had been golfing?
I don't believe so, no.
No, you didn't, did you?
No.
No. You told numerous, well, let me just ask you. How many people do you think you told that Scott had been golfing?
Well, it probably a few, dozens.
Dozens?
Easy.
Dozens, easy.
Easy.
And the police showed up to interview you in June, 6.5 months later. They showed up to interview you for the first time, is that correct?
Yeah.
And when they showed up to interview you, you didn't show up to the interview. They didn't show up to interview you to ask a question about golfing, did they?
I don't know if I understood you correctly.
That was poorly phrased. When they showed up to interview you, the question that they asked, the reason that they came to interview you is because they had a comment that they had overheard from somewhere that you had a problem with Scott over barbecued chicken, correct?
No. That was an issue that I brought up because I was so god darn mad at that man went to play golf when his wife was pregnant. And I saw more reaction out of him when he burnt the damn chicken than when his wife was missing.
And that's exactly right.
You're darn right.
And that's what you told the police officer.
You're darn right I did.
Absolutely. And you told all these people that he had been golfing and that he didn't show any more emotion than he showed on that barbecued chicken.
No
And
more
that he showed
emotion
more,
than
that he showed on that, and that he didn't even show any more emotion than he showed on that barbecued chicken. Okay.
no more emotion than he's showing right now.
Absolutely. Every single person that you told about this golfing, every single person knew that you told Scott Peterson told you that night that he had been golfing.
Well, in the immediate area, yes.
And not
Yes.
a single one of them told the police, did they?
I don't know, sir, whether anyone else repeated it.
Not one police? Wait. You've got to let him finish his answer. Yes, not one police officer came to your house at any point for 6.5 months to ask you, in fact, Scott Peterson.
There was no reason for.
No, objection, Your Honor. It's been asked and answered, and it's argumentative. Yeah, it's argumentative. It's been asked and answered. I'll sustain that. Now, you, Mr. Harris, you're going to have to wait until this gentleman finishes his answer. Mr. Kemple, you've got to wait until the lawyer finishes his question because she can't report two people talking at the same time.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I understand. Go ahead. In fact, when the police officer came and interviewed you, he did not even ask you. He didn't even ask you the specific question. In fact, you told other people that Scott Peterson had been golfing, did he?
I don't know if I really remember that.
I'll rephrase that.
what you're trying to ask me.
Rephrase it. I'll rephrase it. You had to volunteer to the investigator that day. You had to volunteer the information that Scott Peterson was golfing that day, didn't you?
That wasn't the issue.
That's not my question.
The issue was,
Wait, you can answer his question, yes or no, and then you can explain your answer. You had to volunteer the information to the investigator that the day Scott Peterson told you, that night Scott Peterson told you that he had been golfing.
no.
And you can explain your answer.
The whole reason that the officer got a hold of me was in talking to other officers at the very few days onset of this, is that what I did recognize about Scott or the situation that night, what I did see in the park, did I see anything in the park? That was the whole thing. And then everything of what I saw, what I felt, came out in my statement.
Have you take a look at this report. This is a report, DA investigator Kevin Bertolato. It's from the report. I'm sorry, my eyesight is bad. The report is 21679. Thank you. The report, if you would read the paragraph, this one, read it to yourself. Read it to yourself. Just read it to yourself. Does that refresh your recollection?
Well, that was part of it. Yes. Yeah.
The reason the investigator Bartolato came to your house was because he had heard you had made expressions, you had made the statement that Scott was more upset over burnt chicken than he was over the disappearance of Lacey.
He wasn't at my home. We talked over the phone. He set up an interview that was close to my job site.
Okay.
And yes, he had heard that statement and wanted to know what my feelings were.
And that's why he interviewed you.
And yes, and that
Thank you.
culminated
Thank you.
the whole.
Now let's talk a little bit about the night of December 24th. It's my understanding that you received a phone call around 6:30 from Ron Gransky.
About 6:15, 6:30 something.
And you got in the car and went to the park.
Correct.
If you can just kind of walk me through this timeline a little bit about what your memory is of the timeline here, how long you were actually in the park.
Until the Modesto Police Department asked us to leave, which was approximately 10 p.m.
You were there the entire time in the park?
On and off, back and forth from the Covina address.
Okay, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of take it in bits and pieces here.
Sure.
If you would, you were in the park for the first time from about 6:45 to about what?
I would say we probably got there about 6:35, something like that.
Okay.
Until approximately another 35 minutes, 7 o'clock or something like that, that I went up to Scott and Lacey's house.
And when you got back to the house, I believe you told the police that Scott was there.
Correct.
And when you went up to the house, and your memory of that evening is that 7 o'clock, Scott was there, and he was waiting at the house, correct?
He was on his driveway approach, yes.
And the police were not there yet.
I believe maybe a black and white had just arrived when I got there.
Okay.
Now, whether he had been in the area, I don't know.
Well, did you tell the investigator that, in fact, you were present when they first showed up?
The
Modesto police person.
When I first saw the black and white drive up, yes.
Okay, and did you, in fact, tell the police that Scott seemed uneasy about the police getting there?
No, that was later on that he seemed uneasy.
Okay, and did you tell them, in fact, that Scott seemed uneasy and didn't seem comfortable with the police officers going into the house?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Basically, you're saying that in your mind, Scott didn't want the police officers in the house.
Correct.
And you could tell this how?
Just by when other people and myself were trying to talk to him. Every time an officer made a move toward the house, because there was other people asking questions.
Uh-huh.
He seemed more intent on going over to the house rather than trying to answer anyone's questions.
He was more intent on getting into the house rather than actually talking to people?
Correct. There were a lot of people asking Scott at that particular time where she could have possibly gone. Again, more on what was she wearing. There was a lot of family members and friends there at that particular time, by that time.
Absolutely. And a lot of people were constantly coming up to Scott Peterson asking him over and over these questions, correct?
Oh, I would, to somewhat, yes, you're right.
The same questions, correct?
Oh, sure.
Absolutely. What was she wearing?
By all means.
Where had she been?
Where she might have gone.
Okay, and Scott seemed more intent on actually trying to go into the house and see if he could help the police.
No.
No?
No. He didn't want them going in the house.
He didn't want them going in the house?
No, that's what it seemed like to me. I say it seemed like that to me.
And you specifically recall when the police got there that in fact they asked Scott if they could go into the house.
I don't know if that transpired or not. I really don't.
And you saw them going up and talking to Scott Peterson, right?
Yes, I did.
And you saw the police then walking into the house, didn't you?
I saw them going into the yard. I did not see them going into the house.
You saw them going into the yard?
Yes.
You never saw the police going into the house?
No, I did not.
The entire time you were there, you never saw the police?
You have to understand, I was back and forth from the park. At this time, too, I was still looking.
Okay, we'll get to that. You, in fact, told the police that the officers would go into his residence, and he would follow the officers into the residence and seem very concerned about them being in the house. Do you recall?
When I saw that was into his yard that I was referring to, into his front gate, if you're familiar with his house.
Yes. So you saw them going into the yard as opposed to the residence.
Correct.
So if the officers wrote that, they were incorrect the way they wrote it down.
Well, they may have misunderstood what I was referring to as the front gate, which is, if you've seen the residence, it looks like part of the home. I mean, the front gate. It's just the way the home is designed.
Okay, in fact, what you later said was that you felt that Scott, the entire time the police were there, that Scott didn't want the police in the house.
You have to understand my feelings at this particular time. I wouldn't have cared whatever the police wanted to do. I would not have left.
Objection. It's non-responsive. It's his state of mind. It isn't relative. It's his state of mind. It's relevant. That's the question that's called for, Your Honor. I think so. So you can finish your answer.
When myself, and I'll speak for myself then, was asking Scott questions, why would he leave my situation of asking a question about his wife and her whereabouts, just leave in the middle of it when an officer was going towards his home, when he showed no concern, none whatsoever.
Right. In fact, what you said, your direct statement to the police was Scott should have turned to have allowed them in and should have talked to them and should have turned
You're darn right.
the house inside out,
You're darn right.
the truck, the warehouse,
Whatever it took.
and the whole bit. Excuse me. You've got to wait until he finishes his question. He should have let them look in the house, look in the truck, go to that warehouse, whatever. He should have let them do anything they wanted to do.
You betcha.
And were you aware, in fact, he let them in the house that night? He let them look in the truck that night? And he took them to the warehouse personally.
He didn't do that while I was there.
He didn't do that while you were there.
Not that I know of.
You saw the police walking into the residence.
I saw the police go in through the gate.
He's already said he saw the police walking through the gate, not the residence. We're beating a dead horse here. He said he saw them walk through the gate.
Through the gate.
Next question.
One of the officers wouldn't not go into the back because of Mackenzie and asked me if the dog is aggressive. I said, no, it's not aggressive. Protective, you bet. Aggressive, no.
Absolutely. And were you there when Detective Bertini, you were there off and on during the night?
Yes, I was.
Were you there when Detective Bertini sat there with Scott and went through the truck?
I couldn't have told you what detective's name was there at that particular time. At the time, I could have cared less. If his name was Taylor, if he was looking, that's all I was concerned about.
Did you see any detectives or any police officer at any time stand with Scott Peterson as he searched the truck?
As he started the truck?
As the
No.
police officer searched the truck?
No, I was not.
You weren't there for that?
No.
Okay, are you aware that at some point Scott Peterson was taken away by a police officer that night, correct?
I learned about that.
You did learn about that.
Yes.
Did you also learn that where Scott Peterson took them was the warehouse that night?
No, I didn't find out about that until later.
Okay, so based on the statements that you gave the police, that you thought his actions were incorrect or his actions were upsetting to you, concerning to you, based on the fact that he wouldn't cooperate, letting them in the house, the truck, and the warehouse that night, does that change your opinion of what exactly Scott Peterson did that night?
You have to understand that
I'm not asking.
wasn't just my opinion.
No, the question is, would that change your opinion, Mr. Kemple?
Would it change my opinion?
Now, he in fact did. Wait, let him finish the answer. Would it change your opinion if you knew Scott Peterson had given the police permission to go into the residence, took them to the warehouse, and let them see his truck? Would that change your opinion about his conduct that night? That's the question.
Now? Would it change my opinion?
Yes. The question is, yes, today, now that you know all this.
Not with the other things I know. No.
Absolutely. It wouldn't, because the other things you know, may I ask the question? Yes. The other things you know is that on January 15th, it was released that Amber Fry and the defendant were having an affair, correct?
Yes, it was.
And at that point, regardless of what you hear from that point on, it will never change your opinion, will it?
There's a lot of things
I didn't ask that.
that may...
Mr. Kemple, you've got to just answer the question. I know you want to get this off your chest, but you've got to do this legally, and you've got to, and if you keep volunteering, we'll be here all day. You've just got to answer the question. What was the question again? You want to read it back? That's the question. Would it ever change your opinion about his conduct?
Personally, I don't care whether Scott has an affair or not, but that doesn't change my opinion of what I was feeling that night
Okay.
and feeling now.
Well, you stated that, in fact, at one point you approached Scott Peterson. Do you remember telling the investigator that you approached Scott Peterson and told him that between 85 and 90 people were out there searching for Lacey?
You betcha.
Do you recall making that statement?
You betcha.
And do you recall stating that Scott seemed to be taken aback by that information?
You betcha he was. Got the doe in the headlights stare.
He seemed to be
He gave me the doe in the headlights stare.
taken aback.
You betcha he was.
I'm sorry, I will let me finish the question, please.
I'm sorry.
He seemed to be surprised.
Yes, he was.
And then you then told the investigator that in retrospect, looking back, you believe that the reason he was surprised was that Scott felt he had gotten more attention than he had planned.
I may have said that.
Is that what you told the police?
I may have said that.
And that was in retrospect. Afterwards, you didn't believe that night.
I believe he was surprised that night. Yes, I do.
Absolutely, he was surprised that many people cared and that many
Yes,
turned out for his wife.
you betcha.
Absolutely. Now let's discuss let me finish on the timeline. I'm sorry I interrupted. You said you came back to the house around 7, something like that.
Yeah,
How long did you
the first time.
hang around the house? Do you have any recollection?
The first time I came back,
The first time you came back.
I'm going to say 20, 25 minutes, probably after he told me he played golf.
Okay, so the first time you were there is when he told you that he played golf.
The first time I asked him, he told me what she was wearing. That was my first question. And then a few minutes afterwards is when I was able to get his attention again, and that's when he told me he went to play golf.
Well, when you say get his attention, didn't you tell the police that in fact what happened was that you walked up to Scott Peterson and you started asking him questions when he was on his cell phone?
I tried to get his attention. I didn't ask him a question while he was on his cell phone, and he was pacing back and forth and wasn't really acknowledging me.
I want to refer you back to the report by Investigator Bertolato. If you'll just read the section silently. Does that refresh your recollection?
Basically what I'm saying.
Well, let's see what you told the investigator. You told the investigator that, in fact, you didn't tell him that Scott was pacing up and down, did you?
I may have said pacing, and he may have taken it another way. He was walking back and forth. I don't know if you want to characterize it as pace. He was walking back and forth on the approach of his driveway.
Well, but you, in fact, let's go over what you told the investigator. You told the investigator you walked up, found Scott standing in the driveway, talking on his cell phone.
Correct.
You told him that, well, you asked him where Lacey was, and he didn't answer, and he continued to talk on the phone.
Correct.
So he was, in fact, on the phone while you were talking to him.
Correct.
And you continued to ask him, you asked Scott Peterson what she was wearing, and once again, he didn't respond to the question, but in fact continued to talk on the phone.
Yes.
And in fact, you asked him a third question, and he still continued to talk on the phone.
I don't know if it went to 4 or 5 times where
So all
it may have been 4 or 5 times.
So all these questions you're asking him that he's not responding to, he's talking on his cell phone at the time.
Yeah, I'm not asking him that question every time. That wasn't my intent when I made that statement. I was saying, Scott, he was walking. I asked him one time after he hung up from the phone what Lacey was wearing, so my brother and I possibly could see some type of clothing or whatever that might alert us down in the park. That was my main reason for going up there.
That's not what you told the officers.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm telling you now. Why the question was put to him, what was she wearing?
Right. That's what you're telling us today.
Yes.
It's not what you told the officer during the interview, though, is it?
It's there.
Yeah. In fact, it's there that you continued all these questions you asked Scott that he refused to respond to. He was on his cell phone at the time talking, That's what you told the officer, wasn't it?
He was on his cell phone. Yes, sir, he was.
Yeah, okay. Now you say you stayed there about 20, 30 minutes, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And during that time, there was a lot of commotion. There were a lot of people wandering around.
Fair statement.
And you went back to the park and began
Looking.
the search.
Right.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're very familiar with this park.
Very familiar.
I get a little confused. You have to forgive me because I get confused with the names of East La Loma versus Dry Creek Park. The area you're searching in is actually Dry Creek Park.
It's been named many things over the years. I know it as Dry Creek Park.
So that might be part of my confusion. It's the same area called by different names.
Correct.
So when I refer to Dry Creek Park, we're referring to this area. If you look at the map, could you point out the area we're referring to? If you point, you could show him, Mr. Kemple. Do you recognize where the tennis courts are up there?
Yes, actually, it extends past that to El Vista, or Old Oakdale Road, clear down to La Loma, which is a way further down. The whole Dry Creek area was known as Dry Creek Park.
All right, so that entire area.
Whole entire area. Now they have broken it up and named different sections after various city council people and different
Normal propaganda. Oh, that's you.
normal propaganda.
They have a habit of doing that. The area you had, I guess, you spent a number of years.
Been there all my life.
Been there all your life. You knew it very well. You mentioned that night while you were searching, one of the things that you did was that there were a number of homeless people in the park, and you talked to them.
Yes, there was. We ran across through other relatives looking. We probably ran across about a dozen.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon in that park.
Not real uncommon. No, not in today's age.
And after you went back to the park, how long did you search for?
Approximately, I'd say another 45 minutes or so, and then I returned back up to the Lacey and Scott's house.
Okay, so this is the second trip back up to the house. Would that be right?
Uh-huh.
And on your second trip back to the house, did you talk to Scott at that point in time?
No, I didn't talk to him.
Well, if we had, help me with the time here, if you got back to the house, you think around 7. You were there for approximately 30 minutes. That would be around 7:30. You went back to the park for another 45 minutes, you think it was?
Thereabouts, yes.
So it will be about 8:15, would that seem?
Somewhere in that neighborhood, yes.
And at about 8:15, you went back to the house.
I went back to the house, yes.
And the second time you went back, you did not actually talk to Scott.
No,
And did you see Scott at that point?
yes.
Okay, and was Scott going into the house? Was he going in and out of the house? Or was he just standing out in that yard at that point?
At that particular time, he was just out in the yard.
Do you recall telling the investigator that, in fact, Scott should have been out looking? That he should have been less worried about being at the house and been out looking?
In my opinion, yes.
And were you aware that, in fact, Scott had been ordered to stay at the house by the police?
I wasn't aware of any such order.
Were you, in fact, aware that Scott had tried to go out, passing out flyers in the neighborhood that night, and had been told to stay at the house?
Hard for me to believe.
That's hard for you to believe?
Yes.
You don't believe the police would have told him he can't leave the area?
I don't care whether they would have told me or not. I would have been there.
You would. So whatever the police say doesn't matter. You would have gone off anyway.
If it was my wife, yes.
So you wouldn't have thought the police know best about how to find your wife. You would have done what you thought was best.
Fair statement.
Okay. The volunteer center trips where you say that you had talked to Scott one morning, if I understand your testimony, and Scott had said he was going to put up flyers at, is it Paradise Road?
Paradise Road area, which is West Modesto.
And when he came out of, what made you suspicious is when he came out of the area of the community center, he went in the wrong direction to go to Paradise Road.
I was already suspicious before that.
Well, what made you suspicious that day? I'll rephrase that. What made you suspicious that day is that he went in the opposite direction?
Correct.
Had you planned on following him that day?
No.
So what made you decide to follow him that day? Was that he went in the wrong direction?
Correct.
And it's your testimony that, in fact, he went to a mall and he sat there and he parked and you sat there and watched.
Correct.
Okay. In your testimony, you thought it was strange that a man who had just lost his wife would want to go somewhere where it's quiet and just sit. You thought that was odd.
No. I didn't. That wasn't even in my mind.
No, it wasn't, was it?
No.
You thought his behavior was odd, though, to do that.
Fair statement.
And did you think your behavior following a grown man sitting in a parking lot for 45 minutes staring at him was odd? Objection, it's argumentative. Sustained.
Fair statement.
The answer can stand.
I did believe it was odd.
In fact, you told the police that you were there about an hour and a half.
No, that was wrong.
That was wrong when you told...
He must have. I corrected that statement when I read it.
You did tell him that, in fact,
Yeah.
you weren't there for an hour and a half.
No, it was about 45 minutes.
And while you were there, Scott just kind of sat in his car, mostly from what you could see.
You know, I was far enough. I couldn't tell you whether he was moving or what.
All right. You testified that, or excuse me, I'm sorry. You told the investigator that you had followed Scott to the country club, the Del Rio Country Club. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you told them that you knew he was a golfer.
Yes.
And that, in fact, you had friends at the Del Rio Golf Country Club, and these friends had actually called you and told you that Scott had been showing up at the country club. Is that correct?
No one specifically called me. It was in person that I had heard it.
Okay. Did you give the names of these friends to the investigators so they could follow up?
I wasn't asked.
You weren't asked that question?
No.
The investigators never bothered to find out whether or not they could back up this story? Objection. It's argumentative.
I wasn't asked.
The answer can go out. Sustained. Next question. Can you tell us who these friends are?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I could.
Okay. Could you please give me the names?
Dennis Tobin, for one.
I'm sorry. What was the name?
Dennis Tobin.
Hogan?
Tobin. Tobin.
And who else?
I'm trying to think. I can't think of a last name right off the top of my head. But a young lady by the name of Stephanie that works at the golf course.
And you just know Stephanie. Do you know...
I can't think.
I'm sorry, overlapping. She works at the golf course. We're going to get yelled at again. Do you know where she works at the golf course?
No, I don't. I think she is part of the pro shop or something like that, but I...
Now, you were aware that your wife had actually been interviewed by the police about a month earlier?
Gosh, I don't know if it was a month earlier.
Sometime earlier.
It was sometime earlier, yes.
And you had told your wife, in fact, you had told her that night this story about Scott's golfing, did you not? That he told you that night that he had been golfing.
I told my wife, I told my brother, I told a lot of my family members that returned to my home after the police asked us to leave the park.
But you specifically told your wife.
After she told me, he told her he went fishing, you betcha.
Are you aware that she then interviewed with the police?
Yes,
And did you receive a phone call right after that from the police saying they needed to talk to you?
I received a phone call from Detective Bartolotto. I couldn't tell you exactly the date, and we arranged, because of my conflict work schedule and his, to meet, yes.
And it was about 6 weeks later, approximately. Does that sound about right?
Gosh, it could have been, yeah.
From your knowledge, your wife never told the police the story about that you told about Scott going golfing. Objection, Your Honor. That's like about 2 layers of hearsay. His knowledge of what his wife, she just testified. Sustained. I don't have anything else. The redirect by Rick DeStasso. Redirect? Just a couple of questions. Mr. Kemple, counsel asked you a lot of questions about that burnt chicken comment. Can you just tell us what you meant by that?
I fancy myself as a barbecuer, which many people do. When Scott installed...
Objection, non-responsive. I think he's trying to answer. Overruled. Go ahead.
When Scott installed his barbecue, which was just within a matter of days or weeks prior to us attending that 4th of July barbecue, he burnt chicken. I was trying to tell him to turn the butane down and let the heat of the lava rocks cook the chicken. He didn't want to pay attention, which he maybe shouldn't have. I don't know, and it burnt, and he got upset.
All right, so you saw him upset
Yeah,
over the chicken.
burnt chicken.
Right. And in your mind, when you compared what you saw him getting upset over the chicken versus what you saw on the 24th, did you see a contrast?
Yeah, I saw him upset with the burnt chicken.
Uh-huh.
I didn't see him upset that night about Lacey being gone.
Let me ask you just one final question. When you said you saw the officers going into not the residence, but the front yard, do you recognize this as like a diagram of their house?
Yes,
Okay, it's labeled here courtyard,
yes,
and then gate number 1,
right,
and then fence.
correct.
Okay, and when you were talking about them going into the front, were you talking about them going into the gate
Correct.
and this courtyard area?
Yeah, because I approached over here.
Okay, you were over here by the driveway.
Correct.
And this is a solid fence that you can't see through, right?
Right.
So once they got in there, you didn't know whether they were going into the house or what.
I couldn't tell you.
Okay, nothing further. Another recross by Pat Harris. Any questions about the chicken? I would love to revisit. We have the narrow rule in California, so let's keep it about the chicken. I would love to revisit this barbecue chicken incident. You, in fact, when you discussed the fact that Scott I believe your quote is that Scott got pissed off
Yes, he did.
about the chicken. And when he was questioned about the chicken being burnt, when he was questioning you about the chicken being burnt, you said he was pissed off. And then he asked you, followed up with, how did he show you that? And your exact answer was, he didn't curse and he didn't throw things. He just seemed frustrated. Do you recall saying that to the investigator?
No. He slammed the cover down on the barbecue and wasn't real happy, let me put it that way.
Okay.
And Lacey had made a comment.
Well, you actually told the investigator that the only thing visible he did was he made comments. Excuse me, not visible, but the only thing he indicated to you he was upset is that he made comments about the chicken. Do you recall that?
Yeah.
So the extent of his anger that night, his upset at the great chicken fiasco, was that he got a little upset and actually made some comments about the chicken. And that was his anger.
No, between facial and verbal expression.
You've been at the house before?
Yes.
You were at the house at the barbecue?
Yes.
You're aware there's no cover on the barbecue.
There is a cover.
There is a cover?
Yes.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
It's butane. It's covered.
May this witness be excused? Yes, Your Honor. Okay, Mr. Kemple, thank you. You're excused. And I think that's where we'll end tonight. Thank you for reading with me, Sharon.
Oh, you're welcome.
Sorry I had to get so rough.
You're a little hard on the beef.
Oh my gosh, the barbecue chicken. But I am craving barbecue chicken now.
Yeah. I like the barbecue chicken fiasco.
I know, right? Oh gosh. So everybody there. All right, heartmate wise. How are you? Let's see you pop in there. Hi, Sassy Darcy. How are you? And hi, Carolyn and Chad, just catching up on the last video. Hope everyone's having a great night. Yes. Liza, who else popped in here? Okay. Well, we're gonna go now. They say that thing is playing on Peacock. Does anybody have a Peacock subscription?
I don't think you have. Do you have to have a subscription to Peacock? No. Mike said no.
You don't? Let me
Wait.
see. I'm gonna check it out. Peacock. Let's see.
Oh. He says he's not sure if it's because we have it through our insurance. He's not sure.
Oh,
Because that's a thing they give you.
remind me
Is
later.
that through,
Let's see.
is that through Farm
Peacock.
Bureau? Farm Bureau.
What does this say? Peacock Original premieres get started. What do you mean get started? What is that about? See what it's like.
Yeah. Said it might have been even through
10,000 hours.
Verizon.
Oh, it says I can sign up for free, it says. Let's see if that's really true.
Okay.
Let's see if that's really true. Okay. It says I already have an account. So.
Your court reporter is a very meek little thing, isn't she?
Yes.
Please, sir.
Okay, now it says, we can start watching. So, any members that want to come or Patreons, or if you want, you can join us if you've never joined us in the Zoom. I'm going to start a new Zoom so that at least we have the new Zoom. So I'm going to stay right here. You can think about joining the membership. There's a link. Starts at $1.99. You can join it 1 month at a time. $1.99. And you can watch it with us. If you're a Patreon, you can watch it with us. I'm going to put the new Zoom number out. And you can do a lot of other stuff. We have a 24/7 Zoom that runs. And I'm just going to do a new one, brand new. So we've been in this one. We have to renew it every, we try to do it about every 24 hours. So let me end the other meeting. And I'm going to start this one. Invite, copy invitation. I'm going to put it in the tabs. And you can join us. I'm going to put it in the Patreon and everything else. And so... join us. Let me put it in the community tab first. Okay. That's the first one. I'll put it in the Patreon. Okay, that's the second one. And now I'll put it in Zoom. Oh my gosh, Deborah asked me to check something hours ago. Sorry, Deborah. Okay, sorry. Bobbity Bob is here, and I didn't put it in general yet. I am putting it in general, how to answer a question. Okay. Hi, Bobbity Bob. Hi. Okay, everybody's.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
How are you? Okay.
Fine, thank you.
So everybody in the chat, again, if you'd like to join us and you're not a member, you could just click on the membership where the Nightbot has it, and you can join the membership. Again, it's only starts at $1.99. You can do it 1 month and not ever again if you want. You could do it at a higher tier if you want to support the channel more, or not, whatever you want to do. If you're a Patreon, you can come in as well, and you would have access to not just this, but all of the perks that the members have. So anyway, we're going to go. You can do it even if you change your mind 5 minutes later and decide. You can still go to the membership link. It's in every single video, and there's also a join button on the channel if you have a regret that, oh, I should have done it. You can still do it and join us. And then you'll be able to see the community post with the number. And if you can't see the community post, you can still come in. You can just email me for the number. All right? All right, everybody. Everybody have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye. Thank you to the mods. Thank you to everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Or hopefully in here. Let me go over here.